Chuckle Brothers and the Lost Treasure. The Chuckle Brothers, Barry and Paul, were in the library. Barry was reading The Wind in the Willows. Paul, however, seemed more interested in looking for something in the history section. "I wonder," said Paul to himself. He was trying really hard to be quiet as he looked. He didn't want himself and Barry to get thrown out. But Paul didn't know that he was right below Barry's book. He stood up and let out a big "Ouch!" as he hit his head on the book. "Oh, that was my head. You just gave me a very nasty bruise, Barry," said Paul, scratching his head. "A bookmark?" said Barry. Pretty soon, Barry and Paul were thrown out of the library, but not before Paul took the book he had been looking for. An old lady was outside. Barry decided to put some of his pocket money in her collection box. "Thank you very much," she said. "What's that book, Paul?" asked Barry as he and Paul went on their way. "It's the legend of Jack the Feet," said Paul. "He was a one-legged pirate from Pontefract. This book is full of legends of his lost and buried treasures." "Let's sit down," said Paul, "and I'll tell you about it." But Barry and Paul hadn't gone very far when the old lady appeared again. She rattled her collection box, and Barry put in some more of his pocket money. Barry couldn't help but wonder what she was actually collecting for. When the old lady had gone, Paul sat down. "I found this old treasure map up in the attic last night, Barry," he said. "It belonged to our ancestor, Nathaniel Chuckle. He was a cook on Jack the Feet's ship many years ago, and this map tells of the exact location where the Feet buried his treasure before he went to—" "A watery gravy?" asked Barry. "Exactly," said Paul. "I think we should claim the treasure for ourselves. We shall then be rich beyond our wildest dreams." Paul then stood up. But can you guess what he'd been sitting on? He had been sitting on a bench that was freshly painted, and now there was paint on his nice new trousers. "Oh dear," said Barry. Barry and Paul packed their trusty Chuckmobile with all the equipment they would need for their treasure hunting adventure. "What's this thing, Paul?" asked Barry. "It's a metal detector," said Paul. "It's going to help us find Jack the Feet's booty." "But booties are made of wool," Barry said. Barry and Paul went to their favourite seaside resort, Chuck Hill-on-Sea. They took out their pickaxe and metal detector, then sat down on a bench. "Where do we start, Paul?" asked Barry. "Well, let's put ourselves in Jack the Feet's shoe," replied Paul. "Let's start at the beginning. If you were going to bury your treasure, where would you start? With a hole in the ground," said Barry. "Yes," said Paul. "But if you're going to dig your hole, you should do it on the beach, and that's where we'll start." So Barry and Paul took their pickaxe and metal detector and went onto the beach. But someone else was also there. It was the old lady, and this time she looked like she was after something other than Barry's pocket money. "Barry, hide!" said Paul quietly. He and Barry ducked behind a windbreaker, where they remained until they were sure the lady had gone. And when she was, Paul took out the map. "This is the spot where Jack the Feet came ashore," he said. He then read the first clue. "On a spot twixt land and sea, when you start off you there should be. 10 paces east, 20 west, this clue's gone, now find the rest." Barry picked up his shovel and went west as Paul counted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Barry then felt his feet getting wet. He had walked into the sea. "Wrong west, Barry!" shouted Paul. After Barry dried his feet off, he and Paul walked in the direction of the other west. 18, 19, 20. They then stopped, and Paul started digging. Paul then hit something. It was a box, and inside it was another piece of paper. "I'll read this one," said Barry. "1,000 paces up the shore, maybe that's the place you're looking for." The clue led Barry and Paul to a building that had rock on the outside. "A rock shop," said Barry. "Great, I'm hungry." But the old lady was waiting outside for them. The Chuckle Brothers ran and hid until she had gone again. When she was gone, Barry and Paul went inside. Barry couldn't believe his eyes. It wasn't like any rock shop that he knew. Paul went off with the metal detector, leaving Barry to look around. "Barry!" came Paul's voice. Barry followed Paul's voice. It took him outside, to the back of the shop. Paul was standing by an old sofa. He had been waiting for Barry. "There you are," he said. "Dig here." Barry took out the pickaxe, swung back, and the head flew off. It smashed through the window and broke some of the priceless antiques in the shop. "Oh, silly me," said a shocked Barry. Worried that he might have upset the shop owners, he and Paul hid behind the sofa so they wouldn't be caught by them. Barry then felt something loose beneath his feet. He shifted it. It was a loose paving slab, and underneath was another piece of paper. "That's it!" cried Paul. "That's another clue! Come on, Barry!" Barry and Paul then left with the piece of paper in Paul's hand. The shop owners would certainly be in for a surprise when they came back from their lunch. After a while, Barry and Paul decided to have a rest on a bench. "You know, Paul," said Barry, "I've been thinking. That old lady seems to be everywhere we go. I think she might be following us. And not only that, I think she's after the treasure as well." Paul laughed. "That would mean she was here right now." But Paul didn't know how right he was. The old lady popped up behind them and rattled her collection box again. Paul and Barry jumped up from the bench and ran all the way back to the Chuckmobile. Paul unrolled the piece of paper and read out the next clue. "From where you found this little note, 100 more and dig a lot." "What does that mean?" asked Paul. "Perhaps it's pirate talk for dig a lot," said Barry. "I wondered when you'd figured that out," said Paul. "I need to go back to the shop now." So off they went. Barry and Paul followed a straight line from the back of the shop. The clue took them to the park. 98, 99, 100. "Let's dig here," said Paul. "I can't," said Barry. "The ground's too hard." "In that case," said Paul, "let's dig down the side of the road and tunnel underneath. When we come to the middle, we'll pick up the clue and bring it back. You have the first go, Barry. I'll let you know when I want my go." So Barry started digging, while naughty Paul went off and had his lunch. As Paul was flicking the crumbs off his clothes, he heard a distant, "Hey, Paul! I found it!" Paul looked. There was Barry, poking his head out of the hole he had dug and holding another piece of paper. "Wow! Let's have a look, Barry," said Paul. Paul helped Barry out of the hole and had a look at the piece of paper. "If you find this final clue, 10 paces south, and it's all for you." "This is it," said Paul. "The final clue. 10 paces south. Let's go." 8, 9, 10. Barry and Paul came to a dirty ditch. It didn't look like the sort of place Jack Lafitte would bury his treasure, but if this was where the map had led them, who were the Chuckle Brothers to argue? Barry got the shovel out and started digging. Barry's shovel then hit something. It was a silver-coated wooden chest. Could this be the treasure? "You better open it, Barry," said Paul, excited. "I'm all of a tremble." "Okay, Oliver," replied Barry. He heaved and hauled and opened the chest. It was full of gold coins.
We're rich,
said Paul. But before he and Barry could enjoy their treasure, the old lady appeared again. This time, instead of rattling her collection box, she took off her costume and revealed herself to be Jack Lafitte himself.
Oh dear,
cried Barry and Paul. He took the treasure chest and vanished. It was like he had never been there.
I suppose that's the end of our treasure hunting then, said Barry.
Not quite, replied Paul.
Let's go down the laundrette and see if we can find any lost jewels. You never know.
And off they went.